Welcome, welcome. This is Marnie, and you are joining me for Marnie's Friends. Today, we're going to be talking about in and out of season, how to navigate the seasons of life with our guest, Evelyn Taylor, and the author of this brand new book. We're so excited to talk about the beautiful God-given role of seasons in our lives, also how to recognize that a season may be changing and prepare for it in advance, the importance of support systems, a shift in mindset that's going to be a surprise yet coming here in this interview, what can be learned inside a tough season, and what to know as you're going through a difficult season. Dr. Evelyn Johnson-Taylor is the author of the new book, In and Out of Season. She has over 3 decades of leadership in women's ministry, guiding women through the various seasons of their lives. She is a theology professor and an AD in nursing, a BA in women's studies, plus an MA and PhD in ministry. You can learn more about her over at evelyntaylor.org and invite her to speak at your upcoming event over at womenspeakers.com. Excited to have you here. Welcome, Evelyn.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm so happy to be here.
Well, congrats on your new book. We were talking before you came live that you've been doing some book signings and been meeting some new people that way. So that's really cool.
Yes, fun.
Awesome. Okay, there we go. My screen here was not helping me out, but we got it going now. So as we go through this, you guys want to just know, you were telling me, Evelyn, that today is a very important day.
Yes, today is International Widows Day. It's just a day set aside to bring awareness and just pause and to think about widows and to not just do something nice for them today, but do something nice for them every day. But just a day to bring awareness to the fact that there are so many widows in the world.
There's a special place in God's heart for widows and for orphans,
Yes.
because God recognizes that men have a special role in the world. And when they are taken out of a woman's life, when parents are taken out of a child's life, that leaves them open in a different way. And so you've been a widow for 7 years. And what did that come as a surprise? Were you expecting that for a while, or how did that happen?
Well, that's interesting. My husband, actually, he was sick for 10 years. And although we suspected that I might be a widow, but I live in faith and believe that God can heal. And so I never allowed myself to go there. And when he did transition, it caught me off guard. And I know everybody says, how can that be? But it really caught me off guard because he'd been sick for so long. And I just thought, well, this day is like so many before. He will go in the hospital. He will come out because he'd done it so many times.
Sure.
But that wasn't the case. June 20th, 2018, he left home and didn't come back.
Yeah. Well, I think just all of us have widows in our lives. And I just love you. I'm so glad you're here. And part of this book has come from that journey. Also, other seasons in your life that you share in the book. And I'm so glad that you're here to just kind of talk us through some of the high points. And of course, you guys want to get the book too and dive a little deeper. So as you sit here now, being a widow for 7 years, also having traversed through many seasons, ups and downs, what is the beautiful side of seasons?
Well, I think for me, the beautiful thing about the seasons that God takes us through is that they help us grow and they give us an opportunity to grow and to shift and to become more of who we were created to be. And it's similar to nature, how in nature we experience the different seasons, the beginning, spring, a time of beginnings, and then summer, abundance, and then the fall and winter. And every season serves a purpose. And it's the same thing in our lives when God takes us through different seasons and we use each season, even though some of them may be difficult, but they shape us and help us to become more of who he's called us to be. And I've been through quite a few, as you were saying. I was a caregiver for 10 years for my husband, and that was definitely a hard season. And then, of course, when he passed away, that was another hard season. And then that whole season of rediscovery. And sometimes it can be very heavy, but it's in those moments that I realized that those were the times when God was doing the deepest work in me. So he has a purpose for
Yeah.
everything.
I'm envisioning, you were talking about seasons, and I'm envisioning a tree and how every season, there's or every year there's a new ring around the tree, and
Yes,
you can kind of see the years that there was drought or the years that it was fire or whatever. You can kind of see all of these markings as the tree grows, because God never wastes anything.
exactly.
All of that goes into you being here, doing what you're doing today. Um, when you
And
talk,
we can always be encouraged too in seasons
yeah.
because no season lasts forever.
I love, my friend has a way, she says, how you say it came to pass. She says it came to pass. It's going to pass. Never worry, it will pass. So,
Yeah.
yeah. So you had the opportunity maybe to prepare in advance for your husband's passing, and yet it came as a surprise. What are some of the ways that you help others to prepare maybe in advance for a season that's coming?
Well, some seasons you can prepare for.
Mhm.
Obviously, empty nesters is one that you can prepare
Yep.
for. The birth of a child, you can pretty
Mhm.
much prepare for that.
Mhm.
Unfortunately, there are a lot of seasons that we can't prepare for. They kind of slip up on us, such
Yeah.
as a loss of a loved one. And even though, as we were saying earlier, even though my husband was sick for a while, I still feel that I feel like I was caught off guard a little bit
Mhm. Yeah.
because I was not prepared. And I don't want to use the word prepared because we had talked about death many times, but I was not ready, I guess is a better word,
Yeah.
to be a widow.
Yeah.
And so I feel like it kind of caught me a little bit off guard. But some seasons you can prepare for, and sometimes there will be an uneasiness or a feeling of dissatisfaction or unsettlement, or where things don't seem to fit any longer, or something that you used to have a lot of joy about. Now it's may seem burdensome to you, and you realize that the grace for that season has maybe passed. And those can be things, like moving into different levels of ministry or changing where you live or things of that nature. But losing a loved one, as I said, I don't know that anybody can really prepare
Yeah.
for that. But I do try and help people understand that even though their seasons may be changing, that there's lessons to be learned in every season, and to try and pull what they can from the season that may be something they need to learn. And of course, I believe that whatever you learn in one season will definitely help you in the next season. So you don't want to get stuck where you are, but be willing to move forward, because who knows, there may be something greater for you. And if you're so comfortable where you are that you're afraid to move into an unfamiliar or outside of your comfort zone, then you miss out on a greater opportunity.
I love that. I don't think any of us are ever ready for somebody to pass.
Yeah.
I mean, every once in a while, maybe a situation is there that you really are ready. But even when that is the case, you still miss them so much.
Yes.
It's shocking to people how much we miss someone even when we are ready. And then when it catches us by surprise, it's quite a challenge, quite a grief journey. I know one of the things for me as I've walked through grief specifically is that I grow closer to Jesus. I get to know him in a new way, at a different level. And I like to think of like a screw going into a piece of wood. You have this piece of wood and then you've got this screw, and then you get down and you think it's all the farther you can go. But then if you get a screwdriver, you can take it in a couple more notches. And that's how our relationship with God is. We keep going deeper.
Yes.
And as far as, going through a season change, whether it's grief for a lost loved one or grief over, I mean, I'm just doing one right now. I have to step away from a certain ministry in order to step into the next ministry.
Yeah.
And there's some grief there. There's excitement about the new thing, but there's grief there. And I just encourage you guys, go ahead and grieve it through. Don't pretend that there's no loss when you're moving from season to season. Like, for example, you mentioned empty nest.
Mm-hmm.
when your children leave, that's a grief. You've
Yeah,
had them, now they are gone off and they're not with you every day anymore. There's a grief there. There's also a lot of celebration there. There's a time now for you to do some things you didn't have time or the
exactly.
bandwidth to do before. And it's the same when someone passes. I think we can have a lot of guilt about any kind of happiness we feel at the different situation that we're in. But as long as we honor the need to grieve the loss of what went, and then we are able to embrace the gift of what is coming. How is that for you? How did you experience that?
And I so agree with what you were saying, because for me, that was an opportunity when my husband passed away. It was an opportunity for me to trust God like I had never trusted him before. And through that, my relationship with the Lord did grow much stronger, much more intimate, because God was all I had at that moment. And so that was definitely the end result, or the other side of that. Although I mean, I still miss my husband
Of
today.
course,
I
yes.
know he is experiencing fullness of joy with the Lord, and I'm excited for him, but I still miss him. But I also know that God, when we met and married 27 years before he passed, God already knew when the day would be, how long we'd be together. And so I had to believe in that moment, and I still believe that whatever it is that I'm to accomplish in the earth, that I can do it without my husband. Because if I
Mhm.
needed him to do it, then he would still be
Oh,
here.
I love that.
Just have to hold on to that. And that's what I would say to anyone. Know that God still has a plan for your life. If you're still here, he still has a plan for your life.
That's right. More seasons to come.
Yeah.
Let's talk about support systems.
Vital, vital. Family, friends, church family. There is no way I could do what I do if I did not have people who were praying for me, people who encouraged me. And that's one of the things I think I missed most about my husband, because he was such an encourager. We were partners in ministry, and he was such an encourager to me and just pushed me to go beyond what I felt I could do. And so when he left me, I didn't know if I would ever be able to do anything again without him, just because he was such a big part of it. And the Lord
Wow.
just laid on my heart to, reach out to people and ask them to pray for you. And I have a prayer team that prays for me. I send them an email maybe 6 or 7 times a year of what's going on in my life, where I am, what I'm doing, what the plans are, thanking them for their prayers. And they've been consistent to pray for me and to cover me. And I know that there's no way I could have done it without them. And just the love and support of my family, my biological family, and my church family has just been phenomenal. So I would say to have support is vital.
Did you ever go to Grief Share or any place like that?
I did. I went to grief counseling, because one of the things, and it's kind of not funny but interesting, because I wanted to be sure I was grieving right, and
Right.
I don't know if there's any right way to grieve. When
Mhm.
you think about it, is there a right way? But I wanted to make sure that I wasn't too far to the left, too far to the right, and I didn't want to get stuck. So the
Mhm.
grief counselor was he was helpful to me, so helpful to me, just to help me understand that whole grief process, and to reassure me that you're on the right track. This is completely normal that you feel this way. And so that was reassuring to me, and just kind of helped me to stay focused during that period, because it's like a fog, and I've heard other people describe it the same way. It's like a fog, and you just kind of don't know what to do or how to make decisions, and things that used to come so easy to you now take all your energy to do, just the simple things in life. And I just wanted some help, someone who had expertise in that area, who could be of service to me and help me to understand what was going on. And grief counseling was very helpful to me.
I think for those listening, if you find yourself becoming angry that no one's understanding what you're experiencing, that they keep telling you to move on, get on with it, whatever. I encourage you to get some help from someone who understands, whether it's the Grief Share Group, which is a national organization, or from a counselor, or from someone who's been farther down that path than you are.
Yes.
Don't just receive it from people that you're doing it wrong or somehow whatever. A lot of times people don't have any comprehension of the kind of pain that you're experiencing or how the loss has hit you personally, and they aren't you.
Yeah.
They aren't you. So get with someone who actually understands and cares about your heart very much and can help you. So, like you said, Evelyn, it's possible for us to get stuck actually in a season transition. We can get stuck and not ever move forward. I've seen it happen. People
Yeah.
who get stuck and they never ever move forward. They just stay in grief the rest of their lives. And that is not God's plan for us. While we'll never forget a person or whatever, we do move on and move forward with God. So
Yes.
really important. You talk about a shift in the mindset. So what was that for you, and what can you share with us?
Well, I think that is very important that there is a shift in your mindset, because without that, then we resist to change instead of embracing it. And as you said, be able to move on. And then sometimes if we don't shift our mind, then we start to look at a hard season as maybe it's punishment, and
Mm.
when it actually may be preparation for something else.
Oh,
And what I
big
learned
difference.
is that and one of the things that I learned, and I share this with people all the time, is that when you find yourself in a hard season, instead of asking why, ask, what is this season meant to teach me? What am I to learn here? And
Mm.
that requires a mind shift to be able to navigate life seasons well. If we don't shift, sometimes we fight against what God is trying to do. And I'm not necessarily speaking about losing someone, but other
Right.
seasons that we go through in life. And we fight against something. Maybe God is trying to move us into something different, something better. And we fight against that because our mind is set where we are. We're stuck where we are. And one of my favorite songs, and I don't know who sings it, I don't even know what the title of it is, but the words of the song are, Lord, whatever you're doing in this season, don't do it without me.
Mm.
And I just feel like we have to be open to what God has for us in a new season, because in that new season, there's something obviously that we are to do, some person we are to touch or influence. And if we can't shift our mind and get a new mindset from where we are, then we won't be able to move forward, and we become frustrated and maybe fearful, when really God is calling us to faith and calling us to trust Him.
I love that. I always say, the enemy's number one goal is to get you in a fetal position on the couch and to keep you there.
Yeah.
That's always what he's after. And God's plans are so different than that. One of our pastors, when God was moving him from one ministry, he didn't know what the ministry was next, but he knew God told him, close out of this church, be done with this church of this date, and I'll show you what's after that. And he was immediately tempted to feel sorry, bad, like you said, punishment versus preparation. And God spoke right directly to his heart and said, oh, I am not doing this to you. I am doing this for you.
You.
Yeah.
Yes.
So that beautiful mind shift in trusting God. He loves you. He has your best interest at heart. He hasn't forgotten about you. So what are some lessons we can learn inside a tough season?
Oh my goodness, so many.
So many.
I feel like tough seasons are some of the most powerful classrooms in our lives,
Mhm. Mhm.
because it's in those times that we learn patience, we learn perseverance, we learn the power of surrender. We sometimes often time discover strength that we didn't know we had. We didn't think we could, but we realize we can. And in those hard seasons, we grow in our faith, we grow in character, and growing in compassion. And for me, that was a big one, because I had known so many widows as a pastor's wife. We had so many widows in congregation, and funerals and things of that nature. But I never really thought too much about it other than, I'm sorry for your loss. What can I do to help you? And then when I had the experience myself, my level of compassion grew for
Yeah.
people who had lost loved ones, whether it be a spouse or another family member, but just recognizing that after everybody's gone, after the services are over, when they go back home, what does that look like? And I just became more compassionate for people. And I think tough seasons will do that for us. They help us to move to deeper level of compassion. And then, of course, hard seasons will teach us to depend on God more. As a caregiver for 10 years, it was difficult. Being a widow for 7 years now, there have been some difficult days, but my trust in God has grown. I trust him now like I've never trusted him before. And we really don't have time for me to tell you all of the things that I've witnessed, the hand of God literally moving in my life over the years. And when I say moving, I mean turning situations around that just seemed impossible. And that's the kind of God that we serve. So my trust in God has certainly grown. And I think that's one of the things that hard seasons teach us, how to trust God more.
Yeah, I love that. And I oftentimes will label a season boot camp. And when I think about it that way, my son went through boot camp, and I remember hearing some of the things that they did to him that he had to do to
Right.
tolerate, to put up with. And I was like, whoa, I had no idea. I had no idea. And as we go through our boot camps in the spiritual walk as well, it does help to put some kind of a label to it, that this is not how it's going to be forever.
Yes.
Yeah. And that right now you will have enough grace to do what you need to do right now.
Yes.
And that in this moment, I have everything I need because God is a merciful, gracious God. So, what is it important to know as you're going through a tough season?
The most important thing, I believe, for one to know, and it's part of the reason why I wrote this book, In and Out of Season, is because I want people to know that they're not alone and that seasons don't last forever. God is with them, even though it may feel like he's silent, that he's there, he sees everything, and he knows what he's doing. And that every season has a purpose, even the painful ones. It may be a season of preparation, as we were saying earlier, or a season of protection or pruning, and not to rush through the season. Try and receive and glean what you were meant to learn, or what the season was meant to teach you. And just remember that you're not alone. When people ask me why I wrote the book, and I don't know if they're expecting something deep or revelatory, but my answer is always simple, is I want people to know that they're not alone when they read this book, even through the pages of the book. I may not know them personally, but just know that the person who wrote the book has experienced some seasons. And so this is not something that's unique to you, that it happens to other people as well, whether they're in a season of grief, transition, uncertainty, or even new beginnings. They're not alone, that God is with them. And I'm with them as well. Read my story and know that you're not alone, that someone else has had this experience as well.
Oh, I just love that. And you guys totally want to check out the book In and Out of Season. And Evelyn, before we're done here, I'm going to ask you 3 questions. So, first of all, do you have a favorite Bible verse or one that you like to go back to over and over?
I do. I have a favorite Bible verse that I've had for years, probably, I don't know, 50 years. And it's Luke chapter 1, verse 38. And this is when the angel came to Mary and told her that she was going to give birth. And Mary's response, she said, "Behold, the handmaiden of the Lord, be it unto me according to thy word." And then the angel departed. And I love this verse. And that is my prayer for my life, because I want to position myself for purpose and recognize that my life belongs to God. And I always want to be available and willing, that whatever he asks me to do, I want to be able to say yes and not hesitate, and be like Mary, have the grace that she had to accept and say, "Be it unto me according to thy word." And she wasn't perfect. I'm not perfect. We're not perfect. But that's not what he's calling us to be. He's not calling us to be perfect. He wants us to be willing. And so that is my favorite Bible verse, and one that I pray over my own life, because that is my desire, to have a surrendered life to the Lord.
I love that. And just a few verses later in that same chapter, it says the word of the Lord will never fail. So we can trust that whatever he's calling us to do, he's going to fulfill through our lives. I love that. How about a favorite book?
Okay, now this one was a hard one for me, because I tend to fall in love with authors. And if I love you as an author, then I will read anything you wrote. And one of my favorite authors is Elizabeth George. She writes inspirational nonfiction, books of empowerment, for women. And her book that she wrote, and it's been many years ago now, probably 10 or more, A Woman After God's Own Heart. And I believe for me, that book was kind of like a turning point in my life, where it gave me the boldness to step into what God had called me to do. And I've used it several times to teach small groups. She shares a lot of practical advice in there. She shares wisdom and how to apply it to women, different seasons of their life. And I would have to say, if I had to choose a favorite, that would be it.
Love it.
A Woman After God's Own Heart.
That's awesome. And then how about a favorite tool or resource that you keep going back to?
Well, I love Canva, and because it has made my life so much easier for making flyers and things of that nature. And then the other thing, I was not necessarily a tool, but for me to just identify my most productive moments of the day has been a lifesaver for me, to realize, because sometimes, you spend a whole day trying to do something, and then it comes to you in a moment and you're able to just knock it out just like that. So just to be able to identify my most productive moments of my day, which are usually for me in the wee hours of the morning, and I'm able to get a lot done. And then there's another tool that I use sometimes, especially for writing emails, is ChatGPT, and being able to put my email into that service and have them, say, can you clarify it, so that people can understand what I'm trying to say.
Right.
Yeah. So those are Canva, I would say, and then ChatGPT. Yeah.
I love that. So what I've been saying now, my line with ChatGPT is this: there's only one thing, well, there's probably many things, but there's one thing that you can be sure that ChatGPT will never do for you, and that's check in with the Holy Spirit.
Oh, yeah.
So as you are using ChatGPT, make sure don't give the wheel over to the ChatGPT. You keep in the driver's seat. Your message, your words, just let it, I do too. I put it in there and I'm like, can you shorten this? Can you make it more concise? Can you whatever? That's awesome. And then read through it again and make sure it's in your voice. But it's a wonderful tool, just wonderful. So
that's funny. You should say that about the Holy Spirit, because I was talking to someone one day and they were asking me some questions and stuff. And they said, oh, I got them from Google. And I said, Google's not a Christian.
That's right. Be careful. Right. Be careful. Yeah. We don't want to start looking to these things as if they're the Holy Spirit. They aren't. They're just a man-made tool that's really useful when used properly, but they're just a tool. Well, I want to encourage you guys to go over and check out Evelyn's webpage. It's EvelynTaylor.org. And also
Evelyn J. Taylor.
Sorry, it's in there. I just didn't read it. EvelynJTaylor.org. Thank you. And also she's available to speak at your women's events. So reach out to her over at womenspeakers.com. Evelyn, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. I love the work that you do to help us as Christian women speakers. And thank you so much for your service.
Well, I love this. I love you. And we are going to get to meet someday, hopefully soon, face to face. But it's so fun to know you online for years. And congrats on your new book.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks, you guys, for joining us. Hope you have a wonderful rest today. Be sure to check out the book, In and Out of Season. And we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.